Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Pioneers Weekly Football Preview. Starting to get close to the postseason now, and we've got the playoff pictures starting to come a little bit more into focus. Reed City's already punched their ticket. Everett just clinched a berth this past weekend with a big win over McBain. Baldwin likely to clinch also this weekend against Traverse City Christian. I think the one team we're still looking at is Chippewa Hills, sitting at 4-3 in the standings. They need to win out, obviously, to get that berth. They've got a big challenge this weekend against Hesperia on the road. Looking at this game, what are some of the keys for them to continue, having the success that they had after a win over Morley Stanwood last week against a Hesperia team that started the season strong but having some issues with depth?
Yeah, that's like you said, Hesperia started out strong, but they've had a little rough stretch here the past few weeks. But looking at Chippewa Hills there, you look at the victory they picked up over Morley Stanwood last week, and for them, their success gets back to just getting the ground game going. And Quentin Gossett had another strong game for the Warriors. And Coach Larry Joe said, when he gets going, that's when we really get our offense going. So I think for them, the key in this game is going to be getting that running game going. And, their defense has been pretty solid all year. Obviously, Reed City game, I think, was kind of a uncharacteristic thing for them. And Reed City can do that to people around here. But I think that's the biggest thing they got going right now is get that running game going and have a solid defense.
I would imagine a big key for them against a team like Hesperia is being able to wear them down and going back to the running game. How big of a factor is the play in the trenches for them? Obviously up front on the offensive line and on the defensive line, when you got guys you can rotate in and out when a Hesperia team doesn't have that luxury.
Yeah, that's big. Like you said, I think the biggest thing they're going to want to do is just wear them down and get those lines going through them, because that's where their strengths really lies, on the offensive and defensive lines. And, they were a young group starting out this season, but they've seemed to progress, and they seem like they're starting to get a little confidence going. So I think that's going to be a big area where they're going to hold an advantage in that game.
All right, your thoughts on who picks up the win in this one?
I'm going to take Chippewa Hills. I think they're going to come out. It's going to be a close one. I'd say maybe a touchdown game, but I think they're going to be able to come out with it, and they've got their backs against the wall. So.
Yeah, I think this is, if this is a Hesperia team they face in week 1 or 2 as opposed to week 8, might be a little bit different story. It's a very solid Hesperia team with some playmakers on there, but they've also, obviously been limited by injuries. I think it is a case where Chippewa Hills wears this team down, wins by a couple scores, but probably won't be indicative of how tough this game is at the beginning stages.
Definitely.
Looking also in the CSAA this weekend, Reed City has a chance to clinch a share of the title for the 3rd straight season. They take on Central Montcalm on homecoming for the Coyotes. Can you talk a little bit about what it's going to take for them to get that 3rd straight CSAA title? And, what some of the keys for the Coyotes can be this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think, obviously, this is their last stumbling block heading into this, because obviously they have White Cloud at the end of the year, and, coaches like to focus on a game at a time, but I think if they can get this one against Central Montcalm, they're pretty much locked up another 3rd straight 9-0 season. But just for them, I think it's business as usual. Keep that running game going. Make just enough plays in the passing game with Chad Samuels there. And then on defense, they've had, the bend but don't break. In between the 20s, they'll give up some yards, but once they get into that red zone area, they really tighten up and limit what the other team is able to do on offense. So I think just keep following that blueprint, and they'll be on their way.
Thoughts on this game and who you got winning?
I think Reed City is going to come out again with it. You got the added emotion coming with homecoming, and obviously nobody wants to lose a game like that. But I think they can see the 3rd straight 9-0 season in the mirror coming up, and just get past this week, and I think they'll be on their way.
Yeah, I've got Reed City big in this one also. All right, welcome back, sports fans. First and foremost, we're going to discuss the Detroit Tigers' offensive woes, if that's all right with you, Brandon. No, you know what? We'll get into NFL action. I think that's a sore subject for everybody. But talking about the Lions this week, obviously a tough challenge for them awaits them, Cincinnati, in a home contest. Talk a little bit about the challenge that is facing the Lions this week against a Cincinnati team, one of the better defensive teams in the league.
Cincinnati is very much like Detroit, offensively and defensively. When it comes to Cincinnati, they rely a lot on the passing game, and that's noticeable. Their defense does step up a lot of times, and that you see that with Detroit as well.
Looking at Detroit, big win last week. They're able to, some of those struggles that they had in the first half, they made some adjustments and were able to come through in the second half. what are the important elements of that offense in making it go?
I think first and foremost, everything relies on Calvin Johnson. He wasn't 100% on Sunday, but he was still a target for Matthew Stafford, and that resulted in other guys getting open, especially Fourier.
Yeah. You mentioned Joseph Fourier, tight end, kind of emerging onto the scene. 7 catches this season, 5 of them going for touchdowns. How important is it for them to have another weapon like him in the passing game?
I think he's one of their best weapons. I mean, you go from Calvin Johnson to Reggie Bush, and then there's him. He's 6'7". So, I mean, he goes out against a 6-foot back. He's got an advantage right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, your thoughts on who gets the win this weekend?
I'm going to be pulling for the Lions. They are at home, and I think that gives them kind of the edge, and I think Calvin Johnson will be a little bit healthier.
Yeah, I've got the Lions winning as well. Really stepping up defensively, I think, in the last couple of weeks, and that's really starting to show. The defensive backs in particular, I think, really making this a solid defense. I think defense carries them to the win, actually, this week, and a little more low-scoring game than people expect, but I think the Lions coming on top. That's going to do it for this week's show. As always, make sure to check out all of our prep coverage in the weekend edition of The Pioneer or visit BigRapidsNews.com.